What does it take to build a nation? Not just any nation, but a modern one, from the literal ashes of a 600-year-old empire. And what if I told you it was largely the vision of one single person? Well, that's the incredible story we're diving into today, the story of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the architect of modern Turkey.
So to really get this, you have to picture the scene. For 600 years, the Ottoman Empire was this massive global power. But by the early 1900s, it was fading fast, often called the sick man of Europe. And then World War I happened. And it wasn't just a defeat, it was a total collapse. We're not talking about a simple change in government. The entire world order that had existed for centuries, poof, gone.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth do you build a brand new, modern nation from that kind of wreckage? It seems impossible. And yet, that's exactly what happened. The Republic of Turkey rose from those ashes. The answer, amazingly, points back to one guy, a soldier who would become a statesman.
To really get a handle on Ataturk, you have to understand the world he grew up in. He was born in the 1880s in a city called Salonika. Think of it as this vibrant, multi-ethnic hub. But it was part of an empire that you could literally see crumbling all around you.
And you know, the huge conflict of that era, tradition versus modernity, was playing out right in his own home. His mom, she wanted him to go to a traditional religious school. But his dad, he pushed for a modern, secular one. His dad won that argument. And honestly, that one decision pretty much set the course for Mustafa Kemal's entire life and, by extension, the future of Turkey.
That modern education led him straight to military academy. And it was really in the heat of battle where his incredible leadership skills were forged. This guy wasn't just some abstract thinker. He was a brilliant and, when he needed to be, pretty ruthless commander.
His big defining moment? No doubt, it was World War I, at the Gallipoli campaign. Allied forces had landed, and they were threatening to take the capital. That's when he gives this absolutely legendary order. I mean, it's brutal, but wow, did it work. He held the line, stopped the invasion cold, and just like that, became a national hero.
So the war ends, the empire is totally defeated, and foreign powers are literally carving up what's left of the homeland. This is where Mustafa Kemal steps up. He launches a national resistance movement. Over the next 4 incredibly tough years, he pulls together an army, sets up a new government in Ankara, and one by one, drives out every single occupying force. The whole thing culminates in the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923, which basically locks in his victory and establishes the borders of a new, independent Turkey.
But here's the thing. Winning a war is one thing. Building a nation, that's a whole new ballgame. He had secured the land for sure, but the big question was, what was this new Turkey actually going to be? This is the moment he had to hang up his general's hat and become an architect. The fighting was over, but now a different kind of battle had to be fought. An intellectual one. Ataturk knew he needed a blueprint, like a new operating system for the country.
Think about it. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed, it left this huge hole, this ideological vacuum. For centuries, people's identity was all tied up with the Sultan and with religion. But now, as sources of state power, they were gone. He desperately needed a new foundation, something to unite everyone.
So, what was his solution? It came to be known as the 6 arrows of Kemalism. Each arrow was basically a direct rejection of the old ways. So instead of a sultan, you get republicanism. Instead of an imperial identity, you get nationalism. And the most radical one of all? Laicism or secularism, which drew a hard line between religion and the state. These were the new guiding principles, though, they weren't always a perfect fit. You had this tension between top-down state control and the idea of power coming from the people.
Okay, so he's got his blueprint. And what comes next is just this whirlwind of reforms. So fast, so radical, that you can only really call it a revolution. But a revolution coming from the very top.
Here's a question for you. What do you do when your entire legal system is based on centuries of religious law and you think it's holding you back from being a modern country? Well, Ataturk's answer was, just get rid of it. The whole thing. And then he did something even crazier. He imported a brand new one. He took the entire Swiss civil code and just adopted it, practically overnight.
And the impact? It was absolutely staggering. Polygamy, banned. Women, suddenly they have equal rights in divorce and inheritance. Their testimony in court is now worth the same as a man's. I mean, with just one law, the entire legal status of women and the very structure of the family was turned completely upside down.
And this revolution went into every corner of daily life. He banned the traditional fez hat because it was a symbol of the old empire. He swapped out the entire Arabic alphabet for a Latin-based one, hoping to make it easier for people to learn to read. He gave women the right to vote way back in 1934. That's years before countries like France or Italy did. Even the economy got a total overhaul. Every single one of these moves was a calculated step to pivot the entire society toward a Western secular model.
Now, in the middle of all this super logical, rational modernization, Ataturk backed this one idea that was, well, it was just plain bizarre. It was called the Sun language theory. It claimed, with literally zero scientific evidence, that all languages everywhere on the planet actually came from Turkish. Sounds pretty wild, doesn't it?
But here's the twist. There was a very clever, practical reason for it. See, the language reforms had gone a bit too far. They'd gotten rid of so many Arabic and Persian loanwords that the language was becoming kind of clunky and hard to use. This crazy theory was the perfect get-out-of-jail-free card. If all languages originally came from Turkish, well then all those foreign words weren't foreign at all. They were just Turkish words coming home. It was total pseudoscience, but it was used for a purely pragmatic reason. Pretty clever.
So, after all that, this tornado of change, what's left? What is Ataturk's legacy today? Well, it's absolutely massive, but it's also something people still argue about, fiercely.
On the one hand, you have these incredible achievements that are impossible to deny. A sovereign country, a secular legal system, huge leaps in education, and women's rights that were way ahead of their time. But on the other hand, because these reforms were pushed from the top down, they also created some major fault lines in society. You've got this ongoing tension between the secular and conservative parts of the country, tricky questions about minority rights because of so-called Turkification policies, and the complicated legacy of starting out as a single-party state. Ataturk himself passed away on November 10, 1938. But his ideas, his ideology, Kemalism, absolutely did not die with him. It's still the foundational DNA of the Turkish Republic, shaping its politics and its culture to this very day. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question. Ataturk's whole project was about creating a modern Turkey. But here's the catch. What it means to be modern is constantly changing. So the real challenge for Turkey today, and really for any country with such a dominant founding figure, is this. How do you honor that incredible original vision while still adapting and evolving for the world we live in now? It's a question they're still working on every single day.